Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. And I am actually looking in two places, trying to do two things at once. And I'm so inexperienced, but I'm determined to get it done. I am Melissa Story, and today is Wellness Wednesday. Oftentimes, when we talk about Wellness Wednesdays or wellness in general, people think that it is limited to your health. And I am here to say that wellness is so much more than just your health, it is your whole being, it is spiritual, it is emotional, it is generational. It deals with the physical body, it deals with our mind, it deals with our finances. You know, when someone asks you, how are you? Or how are you doing? Sometimes we need to just pause to think about that. And the people who are asking, we need to pause and give people a moment so that they can tell us how they are really doing. Um, somebody asked me that it depends on the day. Sometimes I have to think, how am I doing mentally? Because sometimes how I'm doing in one part of my life does not necessarily mean I'm that way for every facet of my life. So, I tend to just say, think about in general, how am I doing? And most times I am doing super fantastic, believe it or not. Um, and it's all about my mindset. So we said wellness deals with mind, is the mindset is included with wellness. So I want this conversation to be particularly about how are we doing in our body and the things that we can do to improve our wellness for our body, and how are we doing financially. I am in the weeks ahead, I will be getting into other areas. But for today's conversation, it is really going to be limited to things that we could be doing in our bodies to improve our wellness, and things that we could be doing financially to improve our wellness. And in addition to those things we could be doing, I want us to talk about healing, some of the things that's required to heal our body, and also to recover and repair our financial status and our finances if that is necessary for you. So let's just get right into it and let's just start talking about it. I don't have a script. I am just coming from the heart to have this discussion. And I do also want to say, and just being transparent, I do have a very selfish reason for coming live. I realize that um, my engagement can improve. I have so many visions and ideas about how I want to engage with the moment makers. I see that there are some fabulous people who are doing some outstanding things, and I need to get in touch with you. Well, you won't know that unless I let you know. And you won't even know that I exist unless I share myself with you. So I am beginning to share more, not just so that you can hear me, but so that I can actually find out who's listening and reach out to you. It's one thing to be able to scroll and like, and then I see a name. But for someone who really engages with me, especially doing my lives, or even after the lives, and you write comments, to me, I think that's just a different level. I appreciate them all, but I just think that they're in different categories. That's just my thought. Anyway, so let's just talk about wellness. So, part of my brand is Gen 3 Legacy. And that's generation. Gen stands for generation, and 3 is the third generation. Um, and then legacy. So oftentimes, in the past when I have just no formal survey, but just randomly asked people, when you think of legacy, what do you think about? And I've heard everything from wills, trust, estates, um, insurance, just things. Well, I want to help redefine that word legacy. It is about what you do every day. And because you're leaving trails, you're leaving crumbs behind um, in everything that you do. So your kindness, your generosity, um, your meekness, and also the inverse. If you're not so nice, you're leaving that behind. If you're not so kind, you're leaving that behind as well. So I have a grandbaby, and when I think about the things that I want to leave her, the intangible are far more valuable than the tangible things that I want to leave her. Yeah, it's the intangible and those things that you can't see, feel, or touch. Those things that are imparted, those things that are just given to her through habits, are so valuable. Can't put a price on it. And that's very important that we understand and realize that. She lives in a different state. And every morning I uh, talk to her and we do a song. We do a song and we also have choreography that goes with it. And she's about 19 months now. And I'm telling you, she has that choreography down pat. She knows the sun is shining. She knows her face is smiling. She knows that we're ready. We are ready. She knows all the moves. Guess what? That those kinds of things, kids are watching. The babies are watching us. And even though she can't articulate all the words to the song, I made up a song when she was born. And I sang that song to her. And although she doesn't know all the words, she can't speak all the words of the song. She knows when we get to certain parts, there are things that we are going to do. Well, guess what? That's a part of the legacy that I'm leaving behind. Not just the song, but the habits, because those habits are um, those patterns that people will follow. And although they may not necessarily know the way, they know when you get to do certain things, they know what they saw you do next. Well, guess what? Those habits can be um, good and they can be not so good. Um, when it comes to our finances, sometimes we don't even understand the impacts of how we relate to money. If you are someone who hoards or is scared to spend, sometimes the people who are watching you, they grow up and they become scared to spend and they don't even know why. If you spend foolishly, sometimes we raise a generation of people who spend foolishly. If you are a consumer, if you are well balanced, if you are, um, living life either up or down, are the people who watch us, and they may not necessarily be your children. It could be nieces, nephews. It could be somebody that's mentoring you. It could be somebody you don't even know who really appreciates you and they look up to you and they're watching you. And you are leaving a pattern behind. And that is so important for us to understand when it comes to our wellness. So I've kind of done an introduction of, our bodies and then our finances, but I want to go back to our bodies. I have failed myself on so many different occasions. I know I have been trying to lose this one set of 20 pounds for I don't know how long. And by now, I just don't know why I haven't lost it. Well, I guess I do know why. Because I actually haven't been as consistent as I need to be. So let's talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, but I got to. So when I think about my wellness for my own body, I'm not talking in general, I'm just talking about me right now. I know that there are certain things that has happened in my body that requires certain types of activity. For instance, I had a back surgery and I have nuts and bolts in my back. I had a hip replacement. I had a knee replacement. Girl just called me the bionic woman. So I have these things that's going on in my body that I know that requires a certain amount of movement and activity so that arthritis won't set in. Um, if anybody who has had or has known someone else with chronic arthritis, it can be very, very painful. And I have lived moments in my life where I have been in a lot of pain and it weighs on me. You can tell by looking at me. It weighs on my emotions. It weighs on my spirit. I'm just not as lively. I'm not as productive. And it will stifle my creativity. Pain has a way of just sucking the life out of you. So I know that if I want to reduce pain, I have to be active. And what does that look like? Does it mean I need to go to the gym every day? No, it doesn't mean that. But it does mean that I need to walk, I need to move, I need to stretch, and just little simple things. Sometimes I go through moments where if I have to go to the bathroom and I have to use the bathroom, I'll just do 20 squats. I just do 20 squats right there. And that's every time I go to the bathroom, let's just do 20 squats. And I had to work my way up to 20. Um, Sometimes during the day, my watch will tell me that it's time for me to walk or to get up. It's time for me to move. And oftentimes I have ignored all the signals. Even though I said it, I wanted to tell me that, but I have ignored the signals. Why do I do that? That's crazy, right? You set the signal and then you ignore it. That is absolutely crazy. So I have to be more conscientious of the craziness that I cause to myself. Isn't that crazy? I cause craziness to myself. And it's not just in that area. And I'm not by myself. I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. So when it comes to my wellness and to make sure that I am not going to have chronic pain, I have to get up and I have to do some stuff. So I as long as the weather is good outside, because I'm kind of like a fair weather girl, as long as the weather is good outside, my movement is good because I actually like to be outside. Although I do have equipment in my garage that I could use. So I really don't have an excuse. The only thing that I am going to say is that I'm going to get better at it. I'm going to do myself a favor and just be better. I'm not going to make any promises about I'm going to do it 5 days a week. However, I am going to set some goals that are going to be realistic, where maybe I can go out and use the elliptical for 15 minutes a day, maybe, you know, 3 days a week, or stretch or do some type of activity on days when it's too cold for me to go out and walk. I really, I live in a city that has bridges, and I love walking the bridges. It's so therapeutic just to see the, nature, and to be out there breathing fresh air. But sometimes it's just too cold for me to be out there in the mornings. That's another thing that gives me pain. When the weather, when it's cold or when it's rainy, I also have pain, and I am working through how to do exercises that will reduce even the pain that I have that I can't control. I can't control the weather, but it is induced by the barometric pressure. It is induced by when it just the coldness, so sometimes I do have pain and I suffer through that. So, one, I have become aware of some of the things that cause me pain. But more importantly, I'm becoming more aware of what I can do to eliminate the pain. Because just to know what causes the pain doesn't help me as much, but it helps me more when I can eliminate or reduce the pain. So, um, I am, even with sitting around the house and making sure that certain parts of my body stay warm. Yeah. So I am learning those things about my body. Um, but also, I want to go back to the weight. When I am about 20 pounds lighter, my body feels better. So it's not just about vanity wanting to lose weight, but it is about my wellness, my overall wellness, because how I feel affect a lot of different areas in my life. How I feel when I wake up in the morning, part of it is my mindset, but the other part of it is just what's going on in my body. So I know that in order for me to be better, and I need to be at least 20 pounds lighter. So I am on a journey to lose 20 pounds, and I want all of you to hold me accountable. And I'm okay with you saying, "Hey, girl, how's that weight loss going?" So, ooh, what am I saying? Yes, I need some accountability partners. Because I have a couple of girlfriends, you know, they won't hold me accountable for weight at all, girl. They be like, "Oh, you thick, but you fine." It's like, I don't want to hear that. I need to lose some weight. I don't want all this thickness. Um, so anyway, I need for you guys to hold me accountable. So when you see me in the streets, even if it's just the YouTube streets or the TikTok streets, the Facebook streets, go ahead and just sometimes every now and then say, "Hey girl, how's that weight loss journey going?" So that'll uh that'll make me do better, especially when I know people are holding me accountable to my word. Um, I just want to give a side note. When I said those words coming out of my mouth, I had a thought. And sometimes we are more committed to others than we are to ourselves. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we're more committed to other people than we are to ourselves. We treat ourselves badly sometimes. We'll break our word to ourselves, but we'll keep our word to others. Why is that? I don't know. And I'm the same way. Sometimes if I give my word to somebody else and I say I'm going to do something, I'll try to move heaven and hell to make sure that work gets done, because I don't want to disappoint other people, especially if they're depending on me. Well, I need to have that same commitment when I give my word to myself. I am the priority in my life. I should be. And that's not being selfish. It's not being self centered. Or maybe it is being a little self centered. I'm okay with that. But it's definitely not being selfish. because I need to make sure that I keep myself together so that I can go out and serve other people. And really, what I do to myself should be an example of what I will do for others as well. Yeah. So I just wanted to go out in left field, and I'm bringing it on back now. All right. So, um, being aware of what you need for your body, making sure that you're at, an optimal weight for yourself, um, at least be on a journey towards that optimal weight. And then making sure that we're putting the right things in our body. I am not here to say what you should and should not eat. I don't want to have that kind of discussion. But I will say it is important that we eat things that will give us energy and that will give us life. And we all have to figure that out. Um, there is sometimes a huge gap between where we are and where we need to be. And for someone to just come up and say, you just need to stop eating this and just start eating that. Well, yeah, we can hear that. But until we learn how to close the gap, it's probably not going to happen it long term. Um, and that's why so many people have these fad diets. In January, a lot of people will just go to and start eating fruits and vegetables, but they don't sustain it. Give me 1 second. I'm getting cold. Turn on this heater that's under this desk. Um, so when I did that, that's kind of funny to me. The whole house, when I'm in the house, it can be warm, but when I'm sitting still, sometimes I just get cold. And I guess it's the same way for most people. Like when they watch TV, they get a throw, put it over their legs. It's something about just sitting still. There's no blood flowing, and maybe that's why we get cold. I don't know. Somebody give me a medical reason or give me a better explanation to help me understand why I just get cold when I'm sitting down. But anyway, so making sure that we eat food that gives us energy and gives us life is so very important. I love eating vegetables. I love eating most fruits, and I don't have to have meat. However, my wonderful husband, he's a meathead. He has to have some kind of meat. I don't care if it's fish, any kind of fish. It could be chicken. He loves red meats as well. But for him to have a meal without meat, he sees that much differently than I do. I can sit there and just, you know, have a salad. I don't have to have meat on it. I don't have to have meat any time during the day. Um, so I have to choose um, when I eat things that are not necessarily fruits and vegetables, like some of those some of the foods that I eat that are carbs. I have to watch my potatoes, even when it's a sweet potato. I still have to watch my intake of that, what time of day I eat that. Um, some people have, uh, I don't want to say an addiction to sugar, but it is like an addiction to sugar. And sometimes I go through it even myself, where I have to say, I'm not going to have, certain sugars. And if I am going to have things that are sweet, I try not to have processed sugars too much. So there are fruits and vegetables that we eat that are good for us that have natural sugars in them, but it's still sugar nonetheless. And it can still, some of those carbs will still turn into sugars in your body. And does our body need some of that? Yes. And I'm just saying, for me, I'm just trying to be more conscientious of the time of day that I eat those kinds of foods, even when they're healthy for me, because that goes back to the awareness. I know that If I'm going to eat it, I'm going to eat it in the middle of the day and not in the evening. I'm not going to do it at 6 or 7 o'clock at night because it tends to just sit on me. So yeah, I get up early in the morning. A lot of times I'm awake 3 or 4 o'clock in the mornings, and most times when I wake up, I get up. Um, and I try to start moving throughout my day, doing things, but a lot of times, I'm telling you, I can get stuck at this desk. It's not that I'm not watching TV. I don't have any music on. I don't have any TV on. I don't have anything on. I can sit here with my thoughts and I can just work. And sometimes it's work that's generating income. Sometimes it's work to generate future income. Sometimes it's just ideas that I'm just trying to get on paper and get my thoughts together. Sometimes it's just organizing my day and all the work that I am doing. But I can spend hours here at this desk, not moving. And at the end of the day, I feel it through here. Ah, I feel it. So I am, and that's why I have my timer, because time goes by so quickly sometimes, and I'm not even conscious of it. So I have something on my watch that tells me when it's time for me to get up and when it's time for me to move. I'm doing a better job at not ignoring it, and I'm actually getting up to move. And I am looking at two different cameras, so I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you and talking off in the air. So if I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at the other camera. Um, Another thing that I do is that I become aware of and I'm looking for, I think that I'm all out and I didn't replace it. When I have a lot going on, I chew gum a lot. I just like to chew. I'll chew it, spit it out, chew some more. And I had to stop and think, why am I doing that? And this is something else. This right here, this is the devil. I probably shouldn't have said that's the devil. I didn't mean, oh God, probably shouldn't have put a product up there like that. Not that particular brand. I'm just saying the gummy bears. It's nothing but sugar, and I like to eat it, but I found that I do it more when I have a lot going on, and I realize it's anxiety where I'm just a chronic chewer, gotta chew something, and and the gummy bears help me as well because you chew them. But I have put a stop to it. So this bag has been in this drawer for 1 month now and I'm not opening it, but I am not going to, um, I could simply throw it away, but I said, I'm bigger than that. I'm stronger than this bag of gummy bears. So I'm not going to throw it away. I'm just not going to have it. So that's where I am right now. I'm just not going to have it because it's not good for me. And thank God I do have teeth in my mouth. Um, and I want to keep my teeth for a long time, you know? So I have to stop all of that chewing. But I said all of that to say that awareness of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it is important for me to in order for me to change the habit. Um when I realize I just want to chew, I stop and I think, what's going on with me, because it goes back to my mental state. It goes back to how I'm feeling emotionally. And sometimes I just write it down, what it is that I am feeling, and try to understand why I'm feeling that way. because oftentimes I just need to have a simple conversation with myself, and it's like, girl, that can wait. Why are you stressing over that? It's like, prioritize your life and get your life together. So, you know, that has been one thing that has helped me over the last 30 days. And I am noticing that a big difference. I'm not chewing as much. Um, the craving is still there. I'm just not yielding to it because I am really exercising my control over my body, over all of my faculties. It does not control me, I control it. So part of my wellness is making sure that I understand what's first in my life and the priority in which I do things. So if I have a list of things to do and I'm stressing out over one thing, because that's really what anxiety is, if I'm stressing out over one thing, I must also say sometimes it's subconscious stress. I don't even realize that I'm stressing out. But that urge to just chew, 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 I just want to chew, helps me to understand that I'm stressing. How does stress show up in your life? People handle stress and they manage stress differently. How does it show up for you? So that's one way that I notice. Some people bite their nails, some people pull their edges and their hair out. Some people have an emotional breakdown. But how does it manifest itself in your life? It's not all the same for everybody. So I would be curious to know. Drop me a line in the comments to let me know how stress manifests itself in your life. So yeah, so I'm taking control in. um, a long time ago, I used to say, and I used to hear people in corporate America talk about stress management. And as I began to develop my own thoughts around certain things I was taught, I don't have to manage stress. Well, as those words were coming out of my mouth, I felt like eating them. I'll be a fool to think that you don't have to manage stress, because you do have to manage stress in your life, because stress is one of those things that you're probably always going to have at some level. And all stress doesn't come from bad things. You can have a lot of good things happening at one time that can also cause stress. And so oftentimes we think that when we say stress, it's all negative. Well, stress can have a negative impact, but it can come from very good things. Yeah. Um, so we're never going to just eliminate the stress. And we do have to make sure that we manage stress in a way that is, you know, aligned with how we do life. Make sure it's aligned with how you do life. All right, so I want to move from wellness in our bodies to wellness in our finances. So, over the last, I want to say about 5 months or so, I've been working on a book. I have a new book that is being released. Actually, it's being released this week, and it is called Fueled by Purpose, Driven by Dollars. It's a framework for financial intelligence. And in that book, it's a financial literacy book, and there are 10 deposits. So each chapter in the book is referred to as a deposit. And in the um, in the book, I speak about your relationship with money. And that's really the extent of what I want to talk about today when it comes to um, our wellness and finances. I want to just talk about your relationship with money, and then in weeks to come, we'll talk about other deposits that's in that book, or other concepts, I should say. So when you think about your relationship with money, your relationship didn't just start with you. It actually started, your relationship with money didn't start with you as an adult. It started with you as a child, as you began to watch the adults around you form their relationship with money and they began to create habits. I want to make a little side note about something that I heard, and my daughter and I were talking about this several months ago, and we're talking about how our DNA has memory, and it has memory of things that you may not have encountered in your conscious life, but it may have happened when you were in the womb, or when even before you even got here. But it's a part of your DNA now because it's a part of you. DNA is a part of you. So sometimes you find children who are so scared of different things. And it's like, where did that come from? Because they've never actually encountered that for them to have that type of reaction. So why are they afraid? Well, I've read this scientific journal that talks about how your DNA remembers things that happened to you before you got here. So I'm saying all of that to say that when it comes to our finances, sometimes we may have to fight against things that we were born with in order for us to improve our finances. We may have certain ideologies and we may not know why we have them. We may have certain uh, thoughts, feelings about money, and we may actually have those feelings and thoughts in our subconscious mind. We may not even be conscious of it until we sit down and think about it. And that's one of the things that my book does. It will invoke you, and it gives space for you to really think about your relationship with money. What relationship do you have with money? Describe it. It's also going to prompt you to think deeply about where those relationships come from. Why do you do your money the way you do? Why do I take all of my change and I put it in a can? Why do I empty my pockets at the end of the week and I put my money in, put that change in a drawer? Why do I constantly go to the bank and I buy savings bonds when I know that they don't earn much interest? Why do I, spend all the money I get, and my norm is to live week to week? And I'm saying um, and I'm not talking about me personally. I'm saying the general when I'm acting like I'm some people that may be watching this, okay? Um, why do I, make risky investments? Why do I, tend to make non-risky investments? Why do I only want to buy real estate as an investment and I don't want to look at anything to do with the stock market? Why is it that I only want to deal with the stock market and I don't want to do anything else? All of these questions when you think about why you do what you do, it's so much deeper than the surface. And most of us are not going to go to counseling about our money matters. Most of us have accepted the way we are as the way we should be. Even when we're doing, especially, not even when, especially when we are doing well financially, we think that it's worked for us all these years. I must be doing something right. But what if you could be doing something better? Because it's always so much room to grow. So, financial literacy is not just for people who are in dire straits. It is not just for people who live from paycheck to paycheck. It's not just for um, people who don't have a lot of money. And that's why it's important that we improve and increase our financial intelligence. And my book does that. It is a framework for financial intelligence. This is my copy here. I was able to go through it just to make sure that it looks the way I want it to look before it was published and released to the public, and it does. So here, it starts with mindset, understanding what you believe about money and why you believe it. So it gives you space for you to write all of that stuff down. I also gave an opportunity for you to write a letter to money and then allow money to write a letter to you. I did that back in 2000 at the turn of the century. I did that. I wrote a letter to money, and then I allowed money to write a letter back to me. And at that time, I realized that I was so afraid that I wouldn't have it that I went to either extreme. Either I held on to it so close and didn't want to spend it, or I spent everything I got because it's almost like speaking the inevitable, things that you speak happens. So I was so afraid that I was going to lose you. I said it to myself that I lost you. I gave you away. And I didn't, allow you to work for me. So in that letter that I wrote back in 2000, I remember, telling it that not enough people in my life has told me about you. I heard your name mentioned all the time, and it wasn't always in a good way. I heard so much about things that you could do, but I didn't see you do those things for the people who were in my life. So part of me was afraid that you wouldn't show up for me because you didn't show up for them. So keep in mind, this was in 2000, and this was the letter that I was writing to money. I also remember saying that, I don't understand why you don't work for me when you work for so many other people. And I allowed myself to sit in it and really think through it. And as I began to increase my financial intelligence, I allowed money to write a letter back to me. And in the letter, now keep in mind, this was in 2000, so we're talking about 26 years ago. And that's how long it's been since I've been writing and jotting things down that has now formed the 10 deposits that's in this book. So this was not something that I just did overnight. It's been like 26 years in the making where I was able to at least put my thoughts on paper in an organized way to produce this. And it's somewhat of a workbook because it does give you space. It gives you information where you read it, and then it gives you an opportunity to think about it, and then it gives you some reflective moments so that you can write reflections. It gives you checkpoints, and it also gives you a prayer at the end of each deposit. So in the letter that Money wrote back to me, one of the things that Money's told me is that, they call me currency for a reason. I'm supposed to flow. And I'll flow in and out of your life depending on what boundaries you set up. In the letter that Money wrote back to me, Money told me, I've always been willing to work for you. I will be wherever you place me. I'm looking for you to put me in a place that I can work for you, but you keep giving me away. Oh my God. That's what it said to me. That's what it said to me. Okay. It said to me, I want to bring you more than what I want to give you more value, but you won't allow me to. I want to bring my friends to you. I want you to meet my friends. I want to bring my friends over to you. And I said to Money, I said, well, who are your friends? And Money said to me, my friends are called interest and dividends. I'm going to tell you that letter, those two letters that I wrote to Money and that Money wrote back to me, baby, they changed my life. It changed the focus and the lenses for which I see life and for which I do life. Has it all been good? No, it has not. However, I have learned to live a balanced life so my highs won't be so high. But guess what? My lows aren't so low either. Well, I want to say, because that was so impactful for me, that's one of the first things that I do in the book. In deposit 1, where we talk about the relationship with money, it gives you an opportunity to write a letter to money. And then it also gives you an opportunity to allow money to write a letter back to you. So I'm going to put a link so that you can go to my website and order that book. It's going to be released today. It can be pre-ordered. And even if you don't get the book, just sit down and do it. The book gives you some guidelines as to how to do it well. But you can do it on your own. You don't necessarily have to have the book. Um, it's the idea of doing it and just sitting down and letting your soul and your spirit speak out about why you are the way you are when it comes to your money. Because we have to make sure that we are being well, even when it comes to especially when it comes to our finances. One of the themes that I have for my business is live well, grow well, and leave well. And they particularly deal with the 3 areas of my primary business that I do. So, Story Financial Group and Property Prescriptions, and then Gen 3 Legacy. One is real estate, one is insurance, and one is wellness. I have a wellness business that I do as well. So I'll be introducing that in weeks to come. But I want to make sure that we all live well, grow well, and lead well. And we have to make sure that we're good with our finances. Now, I want to make sure that I say this and I say this clearly because so many people will see this video and we're not all starting in the same spot. We are in different places in our life. We are at different ages. We are at different stages. We are all in different places, okay? Don't you dare, don't you dare feel guilty and sit and let guilt overwhelm you about what happened on yesterday. Because there's nothing you can do about yesterday. Nothing you can do about yesterday, okay? All you can do now is learn how to be better today and hopefully make improvements tomorrow. And if you take every day, the presence is a present. If you take your presence and make sure that you use all of the new knowledge, all of your energy, creating new habits, getting new information, and applying the information, the new information you have, that's the best we can hope for. Okay? So I can tell you there are many people who have what we consider notable success. But if we were to dig behind their backstory, and I have read about people that I thought was very successful and they failed so many times, in so many different areas. Many of them filed bankruptcy, many of them, lost everything, but they remained consistent. They got new information, they used it, they applied it, and they didn't give up just because, what they did the first 100 times was a disaster. If God put it in you, it surely will come to pass. We've just got to be consistent and we've got to make good choices and we've got to be better at the decisions and the choices that we make. Okay? I said something about decisions and choices. I'll talk to you about that in a future video. So oftentimes we use those words interchangeably, but to me they are so different. And we'll get into that later. But today is about wellness. And I want to appreciate you for tuning in. I can see right now that Marie King, which is my oldest sister, has been watching. And I want to say thanks, sis. I appreciate you so much. I'm new at going live. I'm going to be going live more often. And I am going to begin to schedule it so people will know when I'm going live. So if you see this after the live, go ahead and feel free to drop me a comment. As a matter of fact, I would really like for you to drop me a comment and let me know if this has helped you in any way. Well, today is Wellness Wednesday. And my hope for you is that you will live well, grow well, and definitely leave well. I will talk to you soon. Goodbye. Now, I've got to figure out how to stop the live. So just bear with me on YouTube because I'm not sure how to do it. How about that? Isn't that something? Oh, and it's all I had to do is simply end live stream. Talk to you soon.